Hey everyone, Kevin here. I'm going through this new plan, the HEROES Act bill. This is the proposal by Democrats, and I'm on the rent and mortgage portion, and I've got some big updates for you on this. Quick note, I just want to say there's some talk that, Democrats put together this 1,800-page bill, and like the odds of this passing are mega low. The odds of this passing are extremely high. Compared to everything else we heard, this has the extreme likelihood of actually going through. Yeah, there could be modifications in that, but so far, nothing I'm reading here is incredibly unreasonable. If anything, a lot of this aligns with what we believe the presidency and Republicans are also looking for. We'll get to liability portions in that later, but let's now talk about the protecting renters and homeowners from evictions and foreclosures. So first things first, let's go ahead and put up the bill here. We are on page 961 of this HEROES Act, not to be confused with the HEROES Plan, and here are the updates that we have regarding mortgage forbearance, evictions, foreclosures, all that good stuff. All right, here's the section that matters, page 961. Let's go right through the big parts. I already highlighted the good stuff. So they start by saying that 36% of households are renters, and that Harvard says there's a substantial portion of renters who spend more than 30% of their income on rent. And because of quotes like this in other sections of this bill actually proposes to give over $100 billion to folks who are at risk of homelessness in the form of grants. So if you are a tenant within or close to that poverty level, or you are a food stamp recipient, you might end up being eligible for grant money, free money to stay a renter where you're renting. So stay tuned, probably from your state's housing department and maybe like the Section 8 department for more information on this, but huge amounts of money for low income tenants. But let's now specifically talk about every tenant and every homeowner. The ban on evictions has been extended to 12 months after this bill passes. So if this bill passes on May 31st, this would continue to stay in effect, that is, tenants could not get evicted for not paying their rent and couldn't get charged late fees for not paying their rent until May 31st, 2021. This is a massive extension of the original eviction coverage period, and this applies whether you have a lease or a verbal lease agreement. So if you are a tenant, pretty much this applies. This applies to houses and all dwellings. Pretty much all tenants living in legal dwellings are covered. Also, it looks like after the expiration of this 12-month period, if a tenant still isn't paying rent, an owner has to give a tenant another 30-day period before asking them to vacate. Also, mortgage relief. The federally backed mortgage loan phrase has now been changed to covered mortgage loan. This should dramatically expand to pretty much all people who have mortgages on, 1 to 4 real estate. And there are similar provisions for multifamily as well. So this actually might mean that, and I'm not certain about this, but this might mean that like hard money loans, private party financing, seller carrybacks might actually now be covered by this forbearance demand. So if you had some kind of odd or weird or unique loan, or something that's not like a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conventional FHA loan, you might actually now be eligible. So you'll want to see if your loan is a covered mortgage loan. It says here the term covered mortgage loan means any credit transaction that is secured by mortgage, deed of trust, or other equivalent consensual security instrument. Basically, if you got a mortgage or you got a deed of trust on a 1 to 4 unit, you should be covered by this forbearance, except it looks like there are some special provisions for reverse mortgages. I'm not gonna go deep on reverse mortgages here though. We'll talk about mostly the generic terms of this. Now, there are also sections now that if you go delinquent during this time frame, that is after March 13th, 2020, if you became 60 days late after March 13th, you should receive automatic mortgage forbearance. You'll automatically get a 30 or a 60-day mortgage forbearance that begins the day of this, the enactment of this act or paragraph. And then there are multiple sections in terms of how much forbearance you can get, but the big thing to know is you can basically request forbearance for a maximum of 365 days. And that includes the period of automatic forbearance upon the borrower's request, oral or written, submitted to the mortgage servicer or the borrower's servicer, the person you make the payments to. Keep in mind that you have the right to continue to make payments or shorten your forbearance period. Here's a section for automatic forbearance for certain mortgage, reverse mortgage loans. So there's some special details for reverse mortgage. Again, we're gonna skip reverse mortgage just for the time being, and we'll specifically talk about what applies to most of us. If you have not yet requested mortgage forbearance, this also reiterates that you are allowed to request forbearance by affirming that you are experiencing a hardship and that there should be no documentation required to start the forbearance period. So they can't request like your financial statements to require that. Here you go, here's the section, no documentation required. A servicer of a covered mortgage shall not require any documentation with respect to a forbearance under this subsection other than the borrower's affirmation, oral or written, to a financial hardship that prevents the borrower from making timely payments. Wow, okay. Now in this section here, you see that the borrower is eligible for up to 12 months of forbearance. Then here's a new provision that says treatment of escrow accounts. This is like for your property taxes and your insurance. Remember the last bill, we had no clarity on like, well, who's gonna pay the the insurance and who's gonna pay the property taxes. Well, this actually now says, this is huge, during the forbearance provided under this section, a servicer shall pay or advance funds to make the disbursements in a timely manner from any escrow account established on a covered mortgage. So basically, if you have impounds or an escrow account, which means you make your principal and interest payment, but then in that payment, like in your lump sum mortgage payment, you also put aside money for your property taxes and insurance, and your servicer makes your property tax payments for you. Now, those escrow companies are required to advance those payments for you. You are not responsible for those. In another section, they mentioned that after this is all over, they can't make you catch up on these tax and insurance payments either. Now, under the post-forbearance loss mitigation section, basically after the forbearance period is over, they make new rules and they say that 30 days before the forbearance periods end, the lender or servicer should contact you with your options, and the options need to include the option for your payments to remain the same as they were before the forbearance period, unless you can't afford the payments that you were making before anymore because you lost your job, then you would go into some kind of loan modification direction. But finally, this bill actually says that instead of requiring a lump sum payment, the payments that you forbeared or didn't make should be deferred, including any escrow advances to the end of the existing loan term. So if you have 19 years left on your mortgage and you have forbearance for a year, you now have 20 years left on your mortgage, but you basically got 0 mortgage payments, 0 property tax payments, and 0 interest payments for an entire year. And in theory, that benefit could be passed to a tenant who has, a need or a hardship if you have a rental property, because the tenant can't be evicted if you take forbearance. And even if you don't take forbearance, the tenant can't be evicted. A tenant can, I believe, still be evicted on multifamily and single family if, they break the lease contract for other reasons, but you cannot be evicted if you just do not make your mortgage payment. So this is how you sort of establish that $0 a mortgage and rent for an entire year. In fact, there's even a section here, and I don't believe this part, but it says that one of the options might be forgiving all escrow advances. That's crazy, which kind of makes sense because think about it. If you add 12 months to the end, and now your loan is 20 years long instead of 19 years long, technically, you still had to pay the insurance premiums and tax premiums for this year, which means in the future, you would also owe property tax payments and insurance payments for year 20, which means you'd kind of be paying double insurance and property tax payments. But this bill actually says that the payments are supposed to stay the same, and basically if the lender has to then forgive the money they fronted you for property taxes and insurance, then basically so be it. Now, I'm sure there's a lot more fine print in this. This is insanely long, but there are definitely some very fascinating clauses in here that really fix a lot of the crap that was in the CARES Act the first time. So this is really, really good. You can see just this section alone is over 29 pages long, and that doesn't even include the grant portions. Now let's talk about credit. There is a section for treatment after forbearance, and this changes a little bit what was previously said, because remember previously, if you requested mortgage forbearance, the lenders wouldn't report you as late, but they would make a little note on your account that would say account in forbearance. And I got tons of y'all posting in my Discord channel or course members coming to me going, yo, I took mortgage forbearance, and sure enough, like you said in your videos, they're adding a little note to the credit portfolio that says account in forbearance, and my credit score dropped like 30 or 40 points, which sucks. And now they actually have this here that credit bureaus may not report any adverse information to a credit agency. Previously, it said that the lenders should continue to report you as current, but it didn't say that lenders couldn't put a little stinky, linky, dookie, crappy note in there. That was weird, I know, I'm sorry. I need to get my cup of coffee, clearly. It didn't say previously that lenders couldn't put a note in saying, well, he's current, but he's in forbearance. Yeah, drop his credit score, screw him. Now, this new law, if it passes, says may not report any adverse information to the credit bureaus. That's good. It fixes another hole. This is really good. Now, keep in mind, if you do decide, and here's some more for renters, if you do decide to take mortgage forbearance, there is a realistic possibility that you're not going to be able to get another loan. Like you're not going to be able to refinance, or you're not going to be able to buy something else in the future because you're under current forbearance terms, which kind of makes sense, but keep that in mind if you're thinking about like what I teach you all the time, how to buy below market value real estate, or the psychology of money program that I have, getting into home ownership. If you're thinking about that, if you're taking advantage of mortgage forbearance or possibly any kind of forbearance, it's probably gonna come up, so be careful. There's nothing in this that I've seen yet that says lenders are not allowed to ask you if you're in forbearance if you're getting a new loan. And that does make sense, right? This is supposed to be relief, not like get free money here, but then continue to buy real estate. I get that, as frustrating as that is for us real estate investors. Now, especially if tenants stop paying, okay? Then it's kind of like, come on, you have to take mortgage forbearance then. Tenant stops paying, and then now you can't buy new deals. So there's some issues here. But anyway, renter protections during the forbearance period. A borrower that receives forbearance, this just basically says a tenant can't be evicted if you take forbearance. But we already know that because there's a 1-year eviction moratorium anyway. I guess maybe this just I think this covers the overlap. So for example, if like you take forbearance in December for up to a year, then the tenant would be covered from that extra period, like that second half of May. So I think that's trying to solve the overlap there. This is so much information. This is overwhelming. This is a really good bill. I'm very anti, and I've only read a few sections, but so far this is a great bill. I'm very anti the sort of the pessimistic, well, Republicans haven't, approved this yet. You gotta be kidding yourself if you think people are gonna put together an 1,800-page bill in the House that covers a lot of the things Republicans are looking for without this having been substantially pre-negotiated. So yeah, this has to be passed by the House. It's expected to be voted on Friday. Obviously, we expect it to pass. Then it'll go on over to the Senate, and then the pressure's on to them to pass it. But this would be very, very good if it passes for the forbearance terms. It clears up a lot of the issues that existed. So, okay, there you have it. Make sure to get your life insurance in the link below. Crazy times. The Rona keeps getting worse and worse, so make sure, or at least during the reopening, we continue to see worse and worse issues. So make sure you get your life insurance with the link down below. Your 2 free stocks with Webull. Deposit $100, get 2 free stocks with Webull. And of course, join me in the programs down below. Use that coupon code. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will be back with more updates soon. Thanks. Bye.